If you want to discover one of the most astounding, dynamic, realistic sounding jazz big band recordings that you can find in your average record store or dollar bin, well, stay tuned. Hey there, vinyl community. I'm recording today because I had some new pickups that I wanted to talk about, a couple imports, an incredible sounding dynamic jazz big band recording that I stumbled onto, and a little bit about what's going on with my system lately. So let me get to everything one by one. So first off, you'll notice sitting next to me is not my normal Harbeth 30.2s, but instead I have a pair of Harbeth Super HL5 speakers sitting here. These are not the current XD model, these are the 40th anniversary, so the ones that have just been discontinued. So Jim from Record Collector News is the owner of these particular Harbeth speakers, and like me, he had a pair of 30.2s, and he recently upgraded to these Super HL5s, which is one up in the Harbeth food chain and quite a bit larger, as you can see, more of a close to full range speaker. And I've been since I'm in Los Angeles now, and I have a slightly different sounding listening room than I had in Phoenix. Jim brought these over. He said, borrow these for a little bit, see what you think of them. Because I've been curious for a while of how the bigger Harbeths would sound in my listening space. And it's been kind of fun to toy around with. I don't want to say anything for certain now. It is a different sound than the 30.2s. I think broadly, I can make the judgment at this point that they're a little bit warmer than the 30.2s. But that's kind of all I want to say. But I just wanted to show them off because I'm enjoying getting to know them over the past couple days. They're a really interesting speaker. And you know me, I'm just a fan of Harbeths in general, so it's not like I have any giant complaints. But I would say they're a very different speaker than the 30.2s. And they've been really fun to get to know over the past couple days. The main reason I wanted to make this video is I have a record that I want to share with you guys because I found a gem and I want other people to know about it. Now that I own it and I don't have to fight for it on the secondary market once this video goes up. Last month I went to the Pacific Audio Fest in Seattle, Washington. I stayed with fellow YouTuber Basie and Rob the Waxed and did some coverage of the show for The Tracking Angle, which you can view over at the Tracking Angle YouTube channel and on the Tracking Angle website. And it was a really fun experience. I heard a lot of great sounding equipment, some not so great sounding equipment, a lot of really interesting rooms at all price points. It was a really great show, and I liked that show because it was very digestible. 2 years ago I went to, or a year and a half ago now, I went to Axpona in Chicago, and while that was fun, that was a little overwhelming. It was a little too, you can't really get to everything you want to listen to. It's a little too big. And I really enjoyed the size of Pacific. I wouldn't call it a tiny audio show, but it was a more manageable size. Obviously not every brand was there, but there was enough there to definitely keep you entertained and interested. But in the Potpourri audio room, which was an excellent sounding room, they had some records they were playing there, and I was drawn to the rooms that were playing records for obvious reasons. And they played this one record, and the guy said, if you want to hear a dynamic sounding recording, listen to this. And he pulled out this record here. Count Basie and his Orchestra, Me and You. This is an interesting record. So this is a 1983 recording on Pablo Records. This was, I don't know if it was recorded in 1983, but it came out in 1983, 1 year before, I believe Count Basie passed away in 1984. So 1 year before his death, if I remember right. And they played this in the Potpourri audio room with their big electrostatic, I can't remember if they were planar or electrostat, but anyway, big panel speakers, Potpourri audio. And I had never heard panel speakers punch like that. I mean, it was really astounding, and I was enamored with how dynamic this recording was. They played the second track, Moten Swing, and there is a hit like 30 seconds to a minute into this tune. There is a big band percussive hit, and everyone in the room jumped. I mean, it was startling. And I went, okay, am I listening to mostly the recording, or am I listening to mostly the system? And of course, the system sounded really good, but it was a very, very expensive system. So I made it a mission to track down this record, and this is not expensive. You can get this. My copy is a little frayed. It's a VG Plus copy, and I got this for $20. So it's not, you could probably find this. If you found this in a regular record store, it's probably not going to be that expensive. This was Discogs pricing. But $20 for this. And I played it on my system, and the same thing. It's like, wow. Really, the dynamic difference between the pianos and the fortes, and the hits and the readiness of all the instruments, and man, the drums. The drums on this recording sound incredible. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been really, really enamored with a jazz record. Some people are bigger jazz heads than me. I like jazz, but it's not, very rarely do I become obsessed with jazz records, but I'm obsessed with this record. So I challenge you, people that either own this or can find this or track this down, I'm not making this up. Find this record, me and you, Count Basie and his orchestra, Pablo Records. It won't cost you a lot of money, and you will experience one of the most dynamic, sharp, vivid recordings I think I've ever heard in a jazz record. Just incredible. So that's my advice to you guys and my tip to you guys. So I actually had 2 viewers over the past month or so reach out to me, offered to send me some VCLT, send me some records that they wanted me to have. And that's very, very kind, humbling thing to do, and I'm always hesitant to accept, but one of them is another YouTuber, Flamin' Groove Listens, Jack, who we've interacted before. He entered, I think, one of my contests at some point. And he said, my friend has a bunch of 50s and 60s Japanese records, and I don't know anything about them. Do you want them? And I said, you know what, sure, sounds interesting. So I have some records. So they finally came, and I have the records he sent me, and like he said, I have no idea what these are. I haven't listened to any of them yet. I haven't cleaned them, but from the looks of it, it looks like these are all either Enka records or Kaikyoku records. Enka, to those that don't know, Enka in Japanese recorded music is used to kind of denote kind of vocal music or pop music that is primarily based around like traditional Japanese folk songs or traditional Japanese music with somewhat more traditional Japanese instrumentation, whereas Kaikyoku is kind of Japan's take on, Western singer pop music. So my guess is there's people on these covers wearing kimonos in some cases, so my guess is that these are Enka records. This is a 10-inch mono record, looks like it's from the 50s. Really good condition. Check out the old Denon logo here. Check that out. That's really cool. So this is a 10-inch mono with the tip-on jacket here. Looks really neat. Looks like a female singer singing traditional Japanese music, seems like. Now that I have the mono switch, it'll be a little easier to listen to this. This one looks interesting. This looks like it's Japanese musicians playing, American jazz or blues. There's pictures of those are these are fishing boats, but pictures of the harbor here. Everything else is in kanji, so I cannot discern it. But this is also a mono record. Looks like it's from the late 50s or so. But it's a Blues Best 12 on Taichiku Records, long play 33 high fidelity, SL 1093 catalog number. Oh no, this is stereo. This is a stereo record. Interesting. Well, no, yeah, stereo. This is a stereo recording. Cool. So probably late 50s, early 60s. This is a stereo record by some female singer. I'm not sure who it is. Again, if someone here can read kanji, let me know who this is. This is on Polydor. This is a Polydor stereo release. And by the looks of it, it looks like this person might be a Kaikyoku singer, maybe not an Enka singer, because they're dressed in a little more Western garb, not so traditional looking, but who knows? Not sure. This guy I'm pretty sure I recognize him, but I'm not so certain. Again, if anyone knows these artists, because I cannot read kanji, so eventually I'll look up the catalog numbers and look up who these artists are, but I just haven't had time to really dig into these yet. This is on JVC Novico vinyl. Novico. Never heard of that sub-label. Is this stereo? This is a mono record. So this one's a little different. This is a record called Tokyo Rhapsody on American Decca, not to be confused with British Decca. Vicente Gomez. This is an American record, American recording, possibly, tunes that are inspired by Japan, seems like. Or maybe just the theming of the album is around Japan, but this is an American release with American artists. Another American release that seems to be... So this is a recorded in Japan, released in America album, and it's for the American market. The Streets of Tokyo, top pops sung in Japanese by Nippon's favorite record stars. So this is like a hits of Japanese pop music marketed for the American market. It's cool that this record even got made. This is Capitol. Is this stereo or mono? This is a mono Capitol release. Very cool. It's got the Capitol colored label. Neat. This one was going to be really fun to listen to, I think. So that's it for that pile. I had another viewer reach out to me, and I don't think this viewer is a YouTuber, so I'm not going to reveal their name, but I had another record collector reach out to me and say, listen, I've got I've been collecting records for a long time, and I have a bunch of doubles of certain classical releases. I was wondering if you'd like them, this particular viewer, I think, had contacted me before, so I said, sure, send them my way. And what I got was a pretty nice stack of records, so I want to show off some of these. Some of these I have copies of already, but they're still really nice recordings, and I want to show appreciation for them. This is a great London blueback of Dvorak's New World Symphony with the Vienna Philharmonic conducted by Raphael Kubelik. So London blueback, of course, has got the blueback here on the jacket. These are pressed in England, and this is a nice, beautiful first label London pressing. You can tell by the deep groove and the kind of italic London label and the wide band. I bet that's going to sound great. I think I already have a copy of this, but I'm not going to complain about having another because it's such a great recording. Some Deutsche Grammophones in here. These I don't think I have. This is I think this is a live TV recording of the Beethoven First Piano Concerto with Michelangeli playing the piano and Carl Maria Giulini conducting Vienna. This is the Vienna Symphony, not to be confused with the Vienna Philharmonic. Very cool. I don't have this. I haven't had this. So here's another recording of Raphael Kubelik doing 4 symphonic poems of Bedřich Smetana on Deutsche Grammophon. Again, a record I did not have. Here's good old Karajan with the Berlin Phil doing Schoenberg Transfigured Night. This is one of his, I think, late 70s recordings on Deutsche Grammophon. Sorry about the glare. This is going to be cool because this is a New York Philharmonic recording on Deutsche Grammophon. It's a digital recording, though, but this is some Wagner orchestral suites with Sinopoli conducting, Giuseppe Sinopoli. So there's parts of the Meistersinger von Nuremberg here, Die Fliegende Holländer, I'm sorry, my German's rusty, but The Flying Dutchman is the translation. Siegfried Adele, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever recorded, and then, of course, Lohengrin. So some really nice, I think they're doing actual excerpts from the orchestral excerpts from the operas with the New York Philharmonic, and I bet... When was this made? Because I'm wondering if my teacher played on this. For those that don't know, my teacher in my undergrad still plays second oboe in the New York Philharmonic. And I'm trying to remember what year he joined on that chair. And it might have been the early 90s, so I think he might have not played on this recording, but maybe. I don't know. I'll have to ask him what year he joined the orchestra. because this is, 1986. Another Deutsche Grammophon. This is Karl Böhm conducting the Vienna Philharmonic in Beethoven's Symphonies number 8 and 9. This is cool. I always like Karl Böhm's conducting with the various German and Austrian orchestras. Last Deutsche Grammophon. This is Arnold Schoenberg's Gurrelieder. I don't know much about this piece, but this is a Deutsche Grammophon box set. This is either an opera or a set of pieces for orchestra and voice, I think. I'm not a Schoenberg expert, so I should find out more about this. This is a famous recording, but this is the Telarc Firebird Stravinsky and music from Prince Igor by Alexander Bordin. This is a really famous audiophile recording, and Telarc. I always say always grab Telarcs when you see them in the wild because they're not expensive, but they're great sounding. They're one of the few people that was doing digital right back in the 80s. This was the only Philips record in the bunch. This is Debussy 3 Nocturnes with Bernard Haitink and his longtime orchestra, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra of Amsterdam. I like all these 70s Haitink recordings with Concertgebouw. Really amazing orchestra. Today, even, a very amazing orchestra. One of my favorite orchestras in Europe. And in this set, this gentleman was very kind. He sent me a bunch of living stereos. Some of them I have, some of them I don't have. So I'm just going to go through these living stereos. Some of them, I think he said, are Shaded Dog original pressings, and some of them are White Dog pressings. So why don't we take a look and see what we got here. So the first one is the Respighi, Pines of Rome, Fountains of Rome. This is a famous recording. I believe this is one of the ones that was cut super hot on the 1S stamper, and then they realized they'd cut it too hot for a lot of turntables, and so they went back, and on subsequent stampers, they dialed in the dynamics and bass. So let's see what pressing this is. This is an original Shaded Dog. Let's see what stampers we got. So side 2 we have 16S, and side 1 we have, see if I can see it here, 16S. So we got 16S on both sides. So didn't win the lottery, but still this is going to be nice to listen to. And this has been reissued by Analog Productions. So you can buy this record new in print from Analog Productions, and it sounds great. So here's another one that's, a lot of these are the famous living stereos that have been reissued. This is Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony doing Bolero. The cover of the album is Bolero, but there's also La Valse. Really, really fun, kind of hard piece by Ravel. Rhapsody Espagnole and Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. Munch and the Boston Symphony Orchestra. LSC, 1984, so one of the earlier living stereos. And what pressing is this? Shaded Dog. Let's see, what stampers we got? We have 6S on side 1 and 3S on side 2. All of these stamper runs, it was really dependent on how big of a seller the record was. On something like, I think the highest selling living stereo recording ever is Van Cliburn's Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto that was recorded in Russia. That one, I think I've seen as high as like 92S or something like that. They did so many stampers of that because it was such a popular recording, whereas other living stereo titles only got to 1S or 2S stampers. So it just depends on the particular recording how high the stamper run was. And I don't have that information offhand. Here's a great one, Mussorgsky, Pictures at an Exhibition, Chicago Symphony, Fritz Reiner conducting. And what pressing do we have here? Ooh, this one's in a sleeve. This is a original Shaded Dog pressing. Let me just check the stampers on all these because I'm curious. Okay, this is a high one. 20S on side 2 and 20S on side 1. So this was a popular one, I think. Okay, here we finally got a White Dog. This is Debussy the C with Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony. And I do have an original Shaded Dog of this. This is the White Dog. So this will be a cool comparison to have because now I have an original Shaded Dog pressing of this a White Dog pressing, and I also have the Analog Productions of reissue. So if I wanted to, I could do a shootout between all three versions of this record. And I don't think they do stamper numbers for the White Dogs. Oh, no, they do. This is a 17S, so. But I think the reason why the White Dogs are a little different is because I believe at that point RCA had changed its cutting chain a little bit. Stravinsky Petrushka with the Boston Symphony and Pierre Monteux. And this is a Shaded Dog. Ooh, 1S stamper on side 1. 1S stamper on side 2. Now, I don't know how many stampers they made of this recording, so I don't know if this is rare or not, but it's a 1S, so it should sound pretty good. This is one of the larger sellers too. This is I can't pronounce his first name. This is Richter playing the Brahms Second Piano Concerto with the Chicago Symphony and Eric Leinsdorf. I think how you say his name is Sviatoslav. Sviatoslav Richter? Someone correct me, please. So this is a 1960 recording, and which pressing is it? Shaded Dog. Wow, he made it sound like he was going to send me a lot of White Dogs, but these are mostly Shaded Dog pressings. Now it's a higher stamper. This is 38S and 34S. So this was a popular record. Copeland, Bill of the Kid, and Rodeo, Morton Gould. Let's see what we got here. This is LSC 2195. Another USA pressing, Camden, New Jersey. Shaded Dog pressing, of course. And 13S and 10S. I don't know if you guys are actually interested in the stamper numbers of these, but I thought it's kind of interesting because if you're a living stereo collector like I am, you really do kind of tend to pay attention to those because people always want those lower stamper numbers. So I just think it's kind of interesting. It doesn't put, like, I've never not bought a record because I was like, oh, the stamper number's too high, but it is interesting. So this is one I definitely don't have. This is kind of a Pops recording. This is Rogers' Slaughter on 10th Avenue with the Boston Pops Orchestra and Arthur Fiedler. And I wonder if this is going to be one of the Black Label pressings because it's a Pops. No, this is a red Shaded Dog. I can't imagine they did too many of these. This is 8S and 4S. And last but not least, an audiophile favorite. This is the Saint-Saëns Symphony No. 3, the Organ Symphony, LSC 2341. I love this recording. If you got the right pressing of this recording, man, it can shake your room. This is a great subwoofer test record because the organ just goes so low, and it's a White Dog pressing, which is no biggie. I have the analog productions of this, and that's the one I really recommend picking up because, I mean, like Ryan Smith really cut proper bass into this. So, yeah, that's the one I'd recommend going for. This is an 8S, 9S White Dog second label pressing. But still, I mean, this looks absolutely near mint. So this gentleman took very good care of his records. So that is all for my... Oh, no, wait, there's 2 records left. 3 records left. There's 1 Columbia in this batch. Bernstein conducts Copeland's Third Symphony with the New York Philharmonic. I think it's just your average Columbia. This is probably this is a 360 sound pressing. No big deal. And 2 Angels here. This is a piece of music that I don't know at all. Ippolitov Ivanov, Caucasian Sketches, and the music of Glazunov. Glazunov I know, with the Moscow Radio Symphony Orchestra. So this is one of those Melodia recorded pressings that was licensed to EMI to be put out on EMI and Angel in the United States. But this looks cool. This is mostly for the repertoire. It looks like interesting repertoire. It's not stuff that I'm familiar with. I don't think I know the Glazunov Wedding March, and I definitely don't know the Caucasian Sketches by Ippolitov Ivanov. It's not a composer I'm familiar with. And the final record is this cool Angel pressing of Milstein playing both Prokofiev violin concertos, Nathan Milstein. It's one of the, I mean, record collectors really go crazy for anything Milstein. I mean, you can have Capitol records that Milstein did that are collectible because it's Nathan Milstein. Or I guess it's EI, so it'd probably be Nathan Milstein. I'm not sure. I've never heard someone say his name. It's Milstein, right? Well, that was everything that these two fine gentlemen sent me. So, because Flamin' Groove is an actual YouTuber, has a channel. I will link his channel down below. I'm not gonna, unless the guy wants me to, I'm not gonna reveal the other viewer that sent me those records. But thank you both. Those are wonderful and unnecessary gifts, but very cool to get records from people that appreciate the channel. I'm just going to show two records I recently imported from Japan because they're two records that I've known about for a long time that have not had vinyl issues of them. So one of these albums is from a Japanese heavy metal band by the name of Dead End. So Dead End were a band that was active in the 1980s. They started out as kind of a progressive take on American-style hair metal. And you definitely hear that in the sound on their earlier releases. In fact, two of their albums, their second and third album, were released in the United States on Metal Blade Records, and they actually got a little bit of radio play in the United States. But I think their best album is their 1989 album, Zero. And that album was only released in Japan, and it was the first album that they only released on CD. So it's this album right here, Zero by Dead End. This is their final album before their 15-year hiatus, where and I think it's their most musically mature album. It's where they really start to put other influences into their music. Each album up to this point, they've progressively been mixing different styles of music into their basic heavy metal sound. You started to hear some influences of British New Wave, of bands like The Cure and The Smiths in their sound. And really, it reaches its climax here on this album, Zero, and it has my absolute favorite song by this band, by Dead End. It's called Serafina. I think it's the best thing they ever wrote. It's a beautiful, beautiful ballad. So this used to be the only way you could get it, but now it's been reissued. There's a reissue campaign in Japan. I believe these were all pressed at the Sony plant, but I could be wrong, of this band's catalog on vinyl. So the first three albums, which you could get original pressings of easily and cheaply, have been reissued, but then they also reissued this album, Zero, which is the first time on vinyl. So they released it on double 33. It's a double album, but not a gatefold, unfortunately, so it's two 33 RPM LPs in here. And it sounds pretty good. I mean, the mastering on this album was always good. I don't know who remastered it for vinyl or did the cutting. I wasn't able to decipher the dead wax, but I'm just really happy this is finally on vinyl because it sounds great. It's a great album. And if you're kind of curious about, Dead End were often considered one of the early adopters or developers of the style we now know as Visual K or Visual Style alongside X Japan. So really there's three bands that kind of started Visual K: Dead End, X Japan, and Bucktick. And they all kind of had their own takes on it. X Japan were really about speed metal, Bucktick were really about new wave, and Dead End were kind of in the middle. But they were also a little bit earlier than those two groups, so some people say that Dead End started the whole Visual K music subgenre. But I just really like their music. I think their music's really inventive, and they were trendsetters in a lot of ways. A lot of bands in the 90s did a lot to copy Dead End's looks and sound. The other album I got from Japan is an album that I was very surprised to see this come out on vinyl, and this is the most recent album, Phalaris, by the heavy metal band Duren Gray. So I've been a huge Duren Gray fan for over 15 years, and they have, in their career, released two of their albums on vinyl, 2008's Ouroboros and 2011's Dum Spiro Spero, and since that time, all their subsequent albums have not been released on vinyl. And last year, they came out with this album, Phalaris, which is their 13th studio album, 14th studio album? I don't know. But they released this last year on CD only, again, like the last couple of releases have been, and so, little old me, I was thinking, okay, these guys are never going to release anything else on vinyl. They've not done they're not buying into the vinyl thing. In Japanese, the Japanese market, new releases don't get released on vinyl like they do here in the States or in Western Europe or things like that. But lo and behold, they announced earlier this summer that they were going to release a special edition of this record on vinyl, and I pre-ordered it and got it in from Japan. Look at the art in here, man, that's cool. So this is really exciting, and this is mastered by I'm trying to remember who the Japanese engineer that mastered this is. Let me look it up real quick. So I looked it up. The original CD release of this album, which to me, I didn't like the sound of. I thought it sounded incredibly compressed. Was mastered by the engineer Brian Gardner, as they call him, Brian Big Bass Gardner. He has his own mastering studio, but he used to master at Bernie Grundman Mastering. But he's mastered the last two Duren Gray releases on CD, and I did not care for those masterings at all. I thought they were some of the worst sounding, from a sonic standpoint, some of the worst sounding things that band has ever put out. I don't know the reason for that. It might be complicated, I'm not sure, but I'm just telling you what the end result was. Fortunately, this version for vinyl is mastered specifically for vinyl, and it was cut by a very famous Japanese mastering engineer named Toru Kotetsu. So I haven't listened to this yet, but I'm willing to bet this probably sounds better than the CD, because I've heard releases by Toru Kotetsu before. He's done a lot of mastering at some of these new Sony reissues of Japanese albums, and it seems like he really knows what he's doing. So I'm excited to listen to this album again with a fresh mastering and see if it's an improvement, because musically, I think it's a good album. I just didn't like the sonic choices of the mastering. It's a cool album. You see here, you have the Bronze Bull. The theming of this album is around the famous Italian folklore, the Brazen Bull or the Bronze Bull, this dictator who would roast his enemies alive in a brass bull, and their screams would come out through horns in the nostrils of the bull, and smoke would pour out of his nostrils as the people were roasted alive. Very horrifying to think about, but a kind of a great concept for a heavy metal album, don't you think? So I think that's all I have for you today. I've probably been talking for too long at this point. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please give the video a thumbs up down there, hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and helps give me incentive to get up off my ass and actually make these videos and make them more frequently. I appreciate all the support, and thank you once again to the two kind fellas that sent me these records. I really appreciated it, and I hope you guys enjoyed looking through the surprise mail. Until next time, cheers, VC.